so might not be able to. Oh.
And welcome back to 42 and 42 Survivor All Stars. Now, before I do intros and everything, I do want to briefly touch on my life when this season came out. I grew up, I was trying to find myself as a baseball fan, and I ended up settling on the Red Sox around 2001 or 2. And so this season came out in 04, I believe. And my mom is from the South, so she's got opinions. And I was rooting for Boston Rob this season because I was a stupid kid.
And because you have taste. Continue.
Because I was a stupid kid. So at Final Tribal, I'm like, he's going to win. And my mom goes, I don't even know why you like this guy. He's probably racist. He's from Boston. I'm like, oh, I mean, what? Wait a minute. Like, I understand that you want Amber to win, but okay, fine. But we have Survivor All Stars. We are joined by two of my fellow Survivor buffs, Adam and Emily. It's been a while since y'all have been on, just the network in general. So last time that we did something with just the three of us, I'm fairly certain it was All Stars.
It was All Stars again, because we've been trying to prove to you for the last year that you're so horribly mistaken about your feelings on this season. And we'll do it again, damn it.
So we'll go with Adam first then. What is it about All Stars that's so appealing to you?
Oh boy. I mean, if I had to pinpoint it to one thing, it's just that, in theory, I think it was kind of a big, it sounds like it should work, but there's so many things that could have gone wrong for this not to work. And you've seen it in future, and I guess subsequent would be the right word, subsequent returnee seasons where like the clash of personalities just doesn't fit. I mean, it worked in Heroes and Villains. In Micronesia, like, we got a great season, but I don't think it was necessarily because of like personalities clashing like Heroes and Villains and All Stars was. To me, it was more of like gameplay and like big moves and big moments in Micronesia. But there's been a few now, Karamoan and Game Changers to name two, where we had like a lot of big personalities and people from different eras and different seasons that, like, when they came together, it just for some reason didn't mesh well. And like, to me, honestly, like the biggest draw of this season, like before it aired, was, and this was the first season that I remember watching growing up. To me, the biggest draw was, what's it going to be like when like Rob, and I mean, no one really cared about Rob before the season, but like, what's it going to be like when Lex interacts with Colby, or what's it going to be like when Hatch interacts with, Fair Play? Like, or I mean, I guess Fair Play wasn't, but it was kind of like seeing these fan favorites who we never thought, the idea of like returnees wasn't really a thing. And I think it was just the fact that they not only meshed, but they kind of created like the whole Heroes and Villains thing. I feel like that whole thing kind of like started with this season. So I'd say if I had to pinpoint at one specific thing, it's just the fact that so many big personalities and characters fit so well together. You know what I mean? Like Ocean's 13 or like the Ocean movies, it's like every single person is such a different personality, but they like all kind of like mesh well and click. It's like a Tetris. Yeah. It's like a Tetris game. It's Tetris it's personality Tetris is what it is. And it just works so well. And, if you don't agree with that, then you're just wrong, Drew. Okay, you're just wrong
and dead to us. I'm not being dramatic.
We'll get to my views. Emily, go ahead and just do your. I mean, I see your name, so like, I'm assuming that is a large aspect of why you enjoyed this.
Thank you so much for giving me the platform, Andrew. I have so much to say about why this season rocks, and you're so horrifically wrong. Like, you've never been more wrong in your life. Going off of what Adam said, this season is fantastic. And it's basically because of kind of what Adam said before, where it's like a personality Tetris, but it's not just that. Like, this is the first time ever in Survivor history where the previous relationships and the existing relationships actually play a huge component in how this entire game is shaped and how it's run. Like Kathy wouldn't have gotten as personal with Rob and dug into him that personally in Final Tribal had like they not already had that pre-existing relationship, you know? Also, I don't know if you hate love, but they had the most beautiful love story of all time that started in season 8, and now there's 4 baby Ambers on top of the Rob and Amber relationship. It's beautiful. They paved the exact pathway for all other future Survivor marriages. Okay, there's beautiful betrayal stories between Lex and Rob, and not Richard. What am I thinking? Hold on. We're
gonna go down that road this soon.
There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of angst. It's beautiful. You're gonna love it. It's great.
I already watched. So as you were talking, they interviewed Jenna and Maraska, and she started crying. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Then they interviewed Sue, who, for people that haven't watched the reunion in a while, they actually put Sesternino in the middle of Sue and Rich because, you know.
I didn't know that. I never knew that.
Yeah. Rob is sitting in between them. And Sue's turned like this the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
But Sue was talking, and she's talking about the extreme makeover that she's had, and the camera quickly cuts to a still on Richard, and then they immediately go back to her. And I wonder if someone production messed up there, because I feel like that's not really the person you want to show when you're not even acknowledging this whole situation happening. Like, they never acknowledged that in the reunion for good reason. But that's just a weird little thing.
Yeah.
So going off of what y'all said, it's different watching it, you know, how I have been watching it, because, you know, to Adam's point, you know, as I've watched it since last week, I have been excited to see these people play on the same season, because that, you know, you want to see how these different characters clash and who would win in a situation where everyone is a good to great player or a fun character.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to remove as much bias as possible going into this.
No, you didn't.
I tried to say, hey, you know what? There are a couple of uncomfortable situations, but let's get through it. I tried to do the same thing with Thailand, and that didn't work.
That's what Thailand's lame, though.
But having said all of that, I still I can't vibe with the season at all. I felt a lot. It might be because it had an extra episode. It might be because it was basically a pagonging at the merge, with the exception of the best episode of the season where Sheehan wins immunity. It could be that the pre-merge is plagued by these two events. And also, I feel like them focusing so much early on about let's get rid of these winners. It's just something that I'm glad they haven't really focused on any other returnee season since then. Really just sucked the air out of a lot of it. And I have a lot of notes. One, I will say that every single time I watch this season, Rob actually becomes better for me. Like, I find myself enjoying Rob more and more every time I watch this season. And I think it's because I actually understand his point of view. I understand when he got voted out of Marquesas, his vote out confessional, he was like very humble. He said, yeah, I played a great game. I wish I won the best. All of that. Because I think that he's the type of person that can separate real life and game. We saw in the first episode of this season, everyone's being super friendly with each other. They think it's all going to be buddy. It's all going to be fun. And I think Rob was one of the only people that came in saying, yeah, y'all are my friends, but I'm here to win. I'm here to win, you know, a game for $1 million. And so if these people are going to take it personally, that's their own freaking fault.
Right.
In the finale. And, you know, you see that with Lex and Kathy, especially. Lex, who spent the pre-merge telling Ethan, like, you have to take it like a man when I vote you out because it's not about friendships. And then on the flip end of that, gets pissed off that Rob, you know, votes out his friend. Yes, he took advantage of their friendship. I get it. Rob still voted out a friend because his ultimate goal was winning the game. And I fit at that final tribal, like, he does come off very humble, very just like apologetic, because he now realizes that these people took this outside the realm of the game. These people are focusing on Rob as the person, not Rob as the game player. And I feel like he knew that he was screwed. Now, the fact that he got 3 votes, I think that is a testament to his game, but I find myself really feeling for the guy towards the end, because
Right.
that he wasn't doing any of this stuff to be malicious.
Well, and I agree with you. Like, I feel like with Rob, like he was one of the very rare castmates who was able to look at the game and be able to separate the game from the existing relationships in that point in time. Like with early Survivor games, it didn't matter how it didn't matter the type of game you played as long as you maintain the relationships as much, but now, like in more like futuristic Survivor seasons, it's a lot more about how you were able, the relationships are a lot more scattered. You know what I mean? Like they aren't as personally intertwined with how you feel about the person and how they win the game. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense.
I wonder too if like that mindset of Rob's was impacted by the fact that coming into All Stars, like it's weird to say this now, but Rob was arguably the least all-star of them all. Like even Amber was like, like the America's sweetheart of the season, or at least one of them. Australia kind of had like two.
And she was voted like the hottest person, right? Like an all Survivor in that second America Votes thing, right?
Yeah, and she like was like a Maxim, like Hot 100. Like she everyone kind of got like some serious fame, like most of the cast. And I think that like really started to make them like think of things so much more than just, oh, it's just a game. They, people started to think of, oh, how's this going to affect like
my brand, basically.
Yeah, my brands.
Yeah,
how's this going to affect, like, obviously social media wasn't a thing, but how's this going to affect like my family's image? How is this going to affect like my future kids when they go to school? I mean, Hatch was like when Hatch won, like he was famous. Like everybody in America knew who this guy was. Like he probably had to think like, okay, how's this game going to affect like the rest of my life? How's this going to affect my kids, my family? Whereas Rob was like, what did he place in Marquesa?
He got
like
10th. He got 10th in Marquesa.
10th, yeah. So he was probably like, for him it was, I don't think I know he moved to New York for a little bit and like would hang out with like Lex and some of those people. But I just don't think he experienced that level of like blowing up that some of them did. And I think maybe that was something that impacted his just focusing on the game and not anything else. Now, of course, that ended up evolving into much more than the game for him. Of course, he married Amber and,
got like 3 reality shows out of it. So.
Yeah.
And 4 little baby Ambers.
Yeah, that too. But no, but I do agree. I feel like him and Sheehan, which I feel like Sheehan was there because they needed a representation from Thailand, and they were like, people don't hate you, so you go on. But I feel like Rob, we had Sesternino in the cast. Rob Sesternino was the big Rob at the time. Yeah, and
true.
And I do think in a alternate universe, let's say Sesternino, Ethan, people like that make the merge. I don't feel like Final Tribal would have been as angry as what we got. I feel like the reason that we had the Final Tribal that we did is because a lot of those people were close outside of the game. And so when they come in and they feel like they're playing with their buddies and, or they're faux kids in Kathy's case with Rob, they're going to feel hurt, but that's why I love almost I love almost every other returnee season, because this is the blueprint for how to not go into a returnee season.
Yeah.
Do not go in thinking that you guys are friends. That means you guys can just cakewalk your way to the end, because you're playing against people that also want to win $1 million.
And I also wonder, sorry, go ahead. I'm talking too much.
Please.
Like, I also wonder if, like, because this is the first time we've ever had a returnee season, if a lot of them were, because now, like, the rule is, like, if you're on 3 different seasons of Survivor, 3 is typically the last time that you make it, with like a few exceptions. But they didn't know that back then. It was more like, well, will this be the last time that I get to play? And every person basically who made it post-merge were the people who did not win the $1 million ever. And they may have thought that, like, this will be my do or die last chance, which made it a lot more personal.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate. And, briefly touching on that Final Tribal, there were only 3 people that were not overly bitter, at least the way it came off. It didn't seem like Jenna was bitter. Didn't seem like Rupert was necessarily bitter, which is surprising. And Sheehan, I love Sheehan so much, especially once the merge hit, because the things that she was doing to try to stay in the game didn't work. But then her sussing out Amber as the potential winner, which is why Amber gave her the car at the reunion. I love she her saying the thing about glass houses with the jury, and she doesn't understand how bitter why these people are so bitter. I loved having Sheehan there as almost like a come on guys type juror.
I loved Sheehan. Like, I wish that she didn't come back after All Stars, right? That was her last ride. Yeah, and I guess
it was most of these people.
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of goes to my point too, where this is literally a lot of their last tries. With the exception of just a handful.
You know who also I wanted to give props to for this season is because you mentioned Drew about like how important like pregame stuff was in this season, like existing relationships, not only with people from like Jerry and Colby from their own season, but like at the time no fan knew that Rob and Lex were good friends coming into the season. Like, someone to give a lot of props to, I think, is like the editors for this season. Like they might have had the toughest job with this season than any, because I guarantee you there was so much talk on the island of like stuff that happened pregame, and like even now in season 42, the editors still try to like hide anything that's not in-game canon stuff. Like obviously with 40 they showed like the people playing poker, like that to me was like a huge like step like that was, but especially in season 8 it was like let's pretend like these guys don't have no communication. So the fact that the editors had to build a story around just the events of on island stuff to me was a huge undertaking, and it's just even more reason why I like the season from like a filmmaking production editing standpoint.
Andrew,
wow, from the filmmaking standpoint, yes, I think it's an amazing season. Stop.
Yeah.
I will give you, that is true, and it's funny because basically a pre-game alliance got doxxed at the reunion, where Rob calls out Big Tom for having a pre-game alliance with Lex. And Tom sitting there like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's like, come on, Tom. Like, we all know.
That like completely broke the facade of like no one speaking to each other before. And like he did it like live. So at that point, there was no way to edit around it.
Yeah. And I think that someone says that everyone was making calls during the reunion. The reason I keep pointing to my TV, because once again, I have America's Tribal Council on.
Such a good episode.
It's not. But they keep talking about how they did everyone's making phone calls. So there is the fact that the editors were able to like at least give off the impression that nobody knows who's here. Oh, there's only 6 people. That means there were only going to be 12. We're only going to be 12 people. They're going to be here. And then, oh, really? Like, there's another 6? No way. Oh, Rupert's here? How do I know who Rupert is?
Right.
I'm not supposed to know who Rupert is.
Right.
This season just ended.
From what I've heard, they were told do not make pregame alliances. You know who I actually heard was the first one to make a call?
Sandra. I'm sorry.
Was actually any guesses?
Let me see.
It's a little bit of a surprise.
Tom.
I was gonna say Tom too. Lex?
No, it was Colby.
Colby.
Yeah.
With who? Jerry?
With Lex.
Really?
Apparently Colby. This is what Lex told me, was that they were told do not call each other, do not make pregame alliances. Like, don't even think about it, especially not with people who are from different seasons. And then I guess Colby called Lex and he called Ethan and said, let's form a 3 and we can make it to the very end.
Wow, that's so interesting.
And of course, that sort of became like it didn't work out, but like there was moments there where they really it seemed like those three could be like a power trio. But
I really feel like, I mean, obviously there were different circumstances that prevented this from happening, but like if all, because they had so many winners, especially by the time that they made it to season 8, who were on All Stars, and like there were a lot of, even obviously like Jenna's situation like prevented this from happening, and like how all of the different tribes were divided. But like if all the winners were able to stay together, that majority would have been able to carry to the end, but they were able to just kind of pick them off one by one just based on how they were divided, And
I will say, Drew, like I do agree. Like obviously this isn't my favorite season.
Okay.
Like there definitely are like things I think holding it back from being like heroes and villains,
we'll get to that.
Type. And I agree. I think the single biggest thing for me is the whole like, oh, let's go for the winners thing at the beginning. Like I think that is probably if I had to say my least favorite part of the season, I think that is for me the thing that holds it back from being top tier.
I feel like that's what made like such a strong MVP vote in my mind, like to other Jenna, because she was the one who really like she was an MVP in my book. I didn't get a chance to really get a taste of her social game her first season, and that season like she was a strategic beast, and I really wish that she won that final 3 because I think that she would have been able to make a case for herself to win to the end.
One of the most improved games
100%.
I think of all time, still to this day.
It was brilliant.
In my notes, I have expletive Jenna Lewis and Alicia. As in, I did not enjoy them this season.
What?
At all.
Get out of here!
I was so done with the way that they were treating Sheehan when they thought she was out the door, to the point where Sheehan tries to strategize with Alicia, and Alicia's like, "Oh no, there's no need to. Like, you're going home. If you don't win this immunity." Jenna is treating Sheehan like shit at camp. It's embarrassing. And then Alicia with her mug every time they went into tribal council while she was on the jury. It's like, once again, I understand why these people are bitter. This is like the birth of the bitter jury. We've already talked about that. But those two, more than anyone else, I know that Rob is the big villain of the season, but I feel like those two are very much like the secondary villains, the ones that I actually don't like watching.
Well, and I also kind of wonder if, again, like this is just because I'm just kind of falling victim to the edit, and the edit is just what I remember from the last time we watched it. Like we got a lot more of a taste of Rob's gameplay in Redemption Island and how he can use his trickery and like his mind games to really like mess with people's viewpoints of other people. Like he turned his entire tribe against another tribe, and they all absolutely hated and chose not to interact with the other tribe, and they were the villains, and they weren't allowed to be seen even associating with them. And I know that and I wonder how that would have translated to how he played the game in All Stars as well. Does that make sense?
No, I get it. And there are moments where he's like, especially in Final 5, he turns Big Tom and Rupert against each other.
Yeah.
Because he's afraid that if he doesn't, the two of them are going to get with Jenna and vote out either him or Amber. So I do think that I know Boss Rob gets a lot of crap. And for years, I was one of those people. But like I said, every time I watch the season, ever since I met Adam, and ever since I've known you, I've had to go back and watch the season. And every single time, the one thing that always changes for me is my appreciation for what he was actually putting himself through mentally in this game. Jeopardizing, these friendships and all that.
Would you say it's the best second place game?
That's what you say, Adam, right?
I would say
I think so.
Either him or Dom. I would say either him or Dom.
Yeah.
But even if we want to do 1A, 1B, like I think that's a testament to both their games. But I might give Dom the extra leg just because it was his first time playing. But he also didn't have the emotional stuff going on in Rob's case. A couple of things that we do briefly just want to touch on. Rupert almost killing his tribe because he didn't know how to build a shelter, even though he said he knew how to build a shelter.
Classic moment.
He drowned. Was this the same season where he made an underground cabin and everyone drowned?
Yes. Because it was a storm and Jerry had a panic attack Because
I remember, I felt so bad. Like, there's been very, very few times where my heart just like breaks for people. And I just remember explicitly watching that as a kid and me just feeling like, oh my God, could you imagine?
My notes say, good God, Rupert almost killed his tribe. But right under that, it says, look at Rupert trying to play the game. And I think that was at Final 5. He tries to get the group together to potentially vote out Rob. And then when Rob starts the fight with Rupert and Tom, Rupert gives a confessional where he says, I'm not stupid. Like, I know what Rob's trying to do. He's trying to get us to go against each other. I'm like, wow, Rupert does have strategy. I'm still going through Rupert fatigue very early right now.
Yeah.
It's already like, I'm glad that I have about a 2-week gap before I see him again. But the fatigue definitely kicked in early this morning, late last night. So I'm glad I get to have some type of break from Rupert as he's about to win $1 million on America's tribal council. The fact that, and I have it right here, these jabronis are literally letting these two make out in front of them. They're at final 6 or 7, Rob and Amber are sitting at camp making out on a log while everyone else is sitting there, and everyone's watching, and at no point does anyone say, at least on camera, at least in the edit, maybe we should do something about this. And it's wild that all season, from Sesternino in episode 3 saying, these two are going to do it. Everyone all season, God, they're showing Thailand again. They're doing everyone's favorite fight in America's Tribal Council. And they showed Alicia and Kemi. They showed Rob and Clay from Thailand. And then they showed the Ted Gandia thing as in something, this might win a prize for a favorite fight. Which is wild to me. But back to All-Stars. The fact that people are sitting here knowing full well that these two are never going to vote against each other. It's very similar to our cases with Pappy and then Sweet Pea, where everyone knows these two are never going to vote against each other. And yet the only people who see that in that situation are Giuseppe and Sean, and Kathy, decides to go with them, which is why I'm one of the many reasons I'm not the biggest fan of Kathy. The other one has happened this season. It's crazy that they let them get to the end, basically cakewalk their way to the end.
Why do you guys think that they were able to let them go to the end whenever their bond was so strong? Do you think that was just something that people didn't really anticipate would be
like everyone
a problem?
thought that they were trying to play each other.
Interesting. What about you, Adam? What do you think?
Yeah.
I think that's part of it, what you just said. I think the other thing too is I wonder if, and this is just based on my gut feeling, but nothing else. But I wonder if maybe they just thought that they would become so focused on each other that they wouldn't be threats because they were putting their relationship first and the game second. They were like, oh, they're not threats because their heads aren't in the game, which clearly they were, but obviously maybe Rob was doing that on purpose. Like he was trying to kind of be like, I'm just here for, for the fun at this point. I'm just here for Amber. I'm just here for this relationship. When in actuality, he was going hard.
Right.
That's my gut instinct. I really, it's something I've always wondered too. And obviously too, we've never had this. We've had, moments of people, growing close or I don't want to say falling in love on the island, but we've had moments like this, but it's never been between two people who are clearly in the power position.
Right.
So I just don't, there was no precedent for it. It became the precedent.
All that screaming actually has me sweating right now. So I'm actually
not a fan of confrontation, Andrew.
So back to the, I wanted to touch on some of the brief things that happened. Kathy referring to Jenna as being a cancer at camp, while Jenna is, sulking over the fact that her mom is dying of cancer, is a little bit on the uncomfortable side. The fact that Kathy references, I think twice or 3 times this season, I was robbed in Marquesa, as she says. I was robbed in Marquesa. And it's like, you weren't robbed. One, you were the first person to step off of Hand on a Heart Idol. And two, sorry, you got played by two very religious women. That's your fault. Lex, we already touched on. It feels like everyone this season is almost like a parody of themselves from their first time around, which I think is another testament to what Adam said earlier about after they got out of their first game, they really bought into their whole 15 minutes, and I feel like they tried to come out and play as themselves times, or
1,000, yeah,
11. You have Rupert still playing this overly honest, like I would never turn on anyone, blah 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 role. You've got, and it sucks because it didn't work out for him. But like Sesternino goes in and says, "I can't wait to start wheeling and dealing, start turning on people." And it's like, well, you probably besides the winner, Sesternino probably had the biggest target on his back,
right?
Going into this, maybe Colby. So I feel like a lot of people were playing up.
You think who had the biggest target coming in?
The winners, Sesternino and Colby.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear you say winners. Okay.
Yeah.
Who do you think had the single biggest target of everybody?
I would say probably Colby.
I feel like
or Ethan. I feel like Ethan would also probably have a really big target because he's such a golden boy and like also like was so good at his social game and his physical game. I mean, if I were in season 8, he'd be the first one on my list.
And he's the last winner to get voted out, which is a testament to Ethan's game.
I love him so much.
The Jenna Maraska thing. So that already on its own was horrible. I think what puts it over the top for me is the fact that they turn it into a spectacle where Jeff's asking everyone, would you quit if your mom was dying back home? And everyone's like, no, I'd never quit. Or I wouldn't have come out here. Or like, I tell them to wait.
Right.
And they're making it into like, who cares what any of these people say? This person clearly needs to get, and to top it off, she died almost immediately after she got back home.
Like, I think it was like 7 or 8 days, right?
Yeah. So the fact that they spend about 5 minutes in that scene. Oh, Big Tom said, "Oh yeah, I told my wife like blah 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 before I left," and everybody else is saying all this. It's like excuse my language, but basically, screw all these people. None of their opinions matter.
Whoa, Drew.
Because I almost said something else. So like, that things like that.
Definitely a low point. Definitely a low point of the season.
That's why how can you enjoy this? It's like, how can you overlook that and the Sue thing, which I'm not going to talk about, but how can you all sit there and say, oh yeah, it's top tier, even though these very bad things happen, whether we're taking Rich or Sue's side, and that really doesn't matter. It's the fact that her tribe celebrated her being gone. It's the fact that Kathy said that, she should be ashamed of herself for the way she acted. It's like all of this, and it just keeps building. And then by the time it gets to the merge, it's just a pagonging. Like there's nothing exciting that happens. It's just a pagonging, except for the Sheehan episode.
But it's a surprise pagonging. It's not an obvious
pagonging. Is it a surprise?
It's not an because everybody probably thought that once his alliance merged with Rob's, that they would be the two kings, and they would they would merge,
duke it out,
and then it would be them duking it out at the end. I think that's what most people thought. I mean, like I said, I was only 7 or 8 when this season came out, but I feel like that's what most people thought coming into the merge. Oh, it's going to be Rob versus Lex from here on out, and it totally was not. So was it a pagonging? Yes, but it wasn't a pagonging like when you rewatch Borneo, after episode 3, once they merge, it's just going to be Hatch, Sue, Kelly and Rudy knocking everybody out one by one. So, and I'll take a surprise pagonging after over a an obvious one any day of the week, even Thursday.
I've told you this before, Andrew. Actually, I believe that I told you this today. Whenever we were talking a little bit about the season, like I do. I mean, like this season, like is certainly problematic. I feel like we would be like pressed to find a season that in its own way was not problematic, but I feel like we look at it that it's problematic now because we recognize like new social norms. But to me, like a lot of
True.
what like All Stars is now, to me, it's a time capsule of what was and was not acceptable in reality television, like back in the early 2000s. Like even like if we like parallel this to like America's Next Top Model, or like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like another like like, you know, like different shows where you were like you watch it now and you're like, Jesus Christ, this is terrible.
Even
like,
Jersey Shore.
Don't even get me started on Jersey Shore. That could be its own podcast.
Don't worry, we won't.
I love Jersey Shore.
Right.
But
Same.
So
as Adam, we
fan.
talked about. But anyway, you know, like I mean, like it's a time capsule. You know what I mean? And to me,
Yes.
like it, like there's so like I think that like they're what podcaster or not what podcasters like what production was trying to do in that way was trying to really shape how important this game should be to every single person and viewer alike. You know. So
Yes.
I really enjoy watching that because it helps to kind of show how things and norms have changed from then till now.
So you like as a history person, you don't actually like it. You just like you appreciate it for what it is.
I appreciate it for even more than what it is. It's a historical document, just like Jersey Shore.
I also think that this was the first season where Jeff really started to make that transformation from just like
Host,
like game host to like I'm trying to think of the word like
God.
Because before he was kind of like a commentator, you know, like in a football game, he was like John Madden in football games. He would kind of I did like the moments in the early seasons when he would like kind of stop by in camp, but I feel like there was too much favoritism in those moments. But I feel like All Stars was the first time when Jeff really started to take that leap to being sort of like from commentator to host, when he really would like get people's opinions on things, or like when a matter would happen or when an event would happen to one person, he would get other people's takes on them instead of just focusing on that one person. Now, when it comes to moments like Jenna's situation, maybe better to keep that moment to just Jenna, or just, you know, if she wants to go home, just don't even make it a moment at all. But I think that it was like Jeff was kind of like, I don't want to say put in a corner, but like it was kind of like, okay, I'm trying to do this new thing where I get other people's opinions on matters in the game. Where's the line for that sort of thing? And I think that this was the season where Jeff was finding out where that line was.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that created some high points. I think it also created some low points for the season. Again, I've never once said All Stars is a perfect season. Like, you know, and even that, am I saying it's a top 10 season? Of course I am saying it's a top 10 season, but it definitely has.
You're about to break my heart, Adam. I thought you were going to say no.
It definitely has some low points. Thankfully though, I feel like like a strong majority of those low points happen pre-merge.
Thankfully.
Yes.
So as we wrap it up, I do want to briefly, you know, Amber won, and I think that up to this point, I would still say that of the 8 winners that have happened up to this point, I still would have Jenna as bottom, whatever that means.
You shut your mouth right now.
Of the first 8,
she's so good.
Who would you put at the bottom?
I don't know. We'll talk about it later.
Okay.
Think about it.
And I think
wait, what's your question? Like, Amber's the you put her at the bottom?
I right now have Jenna of the first 8 winners. I would have Jenna at the bottom, just on this watch, on this current watch of what I'm doing.
Oh, interesting. I mean, I agree with you, but I usually people put Amber below Jenna. What's your?
So my thing this time was I paid attention to, like, I tried to focus on just Amber this time as much as possible, and she did a lot of very subtle things, such as when Lex is getting, she doesn't get this person's vote, but when Lex is getting voted out, she's sitting there rubbing Kathy's back, and Kathy is, you know, also like holding her as she's doing that.
Yeah.
During the touchy subjects, I don't know what the actual challenge was called this season, but touchy subjects. Everyone knows what touchy subjects is. She's the only one that doesn't target Sheehan.
Mhm.
Everyone else is cutting Shian's rope. Amber's the only person. She starts going after people in her own alliance, but people that she knows would not take offense to the fact that she was cutting their rope. Everyone else is targeting Shian. She actually is one of the only people to sit there and talk to Shian about strategizing before she goes out. At Final Tribal, when Rupert or Big Tom ask why the other, or why you should win over the other person, and she says, because I knew that you were closer to Rob than I was, so I didn't feel bad for voting you out because we didn't have the same type of relationship.
Mhm.
I think
Rupert was the one that said that.
Okay, so then I think that a lot of things that she did this season were very much over, like when she got swap screwed. Yes, Rob asked Lex to do him the solid, but Jenna. Amber went and talked to Kathy anyway. Amber was trying to get Kathy on her side. She wasn't just sitting there hoping that what Rob said to Lex was going to be it. She actually put in the work to save herself. So I do have a lot of respect for her winning this season. Did I want her back for Winners at War? Obviously not. But I think that she did a great job in this. And now for my rating for the season,
let me do some drum rolls.
Out of 5, it's a 3. It's a 3.
Out of what?
5. It's a 3 out of 5.
Okay.
But that's the second
Scared me
lowest
for a second.
bar. That's the
I'm
second
still
lowest.
mad at you, but I'll get over it.
It's not the 1.5 I gave Thailand. So
Thailand earned its rating, but I feel like All Stars is so much higher. It has to be.
Yeah, sure, it's a 3.
What's been your highest grade so far, Pearl Islands?
I gave Amazon and Pearl Islands 4.5.
Oh wow, what'd you give Borneo? A 4?
4.2 or 4.25, 4.5 or 4.25.
Okay.
Wait, I have a question. Wait, so you rated Amazon 4.5,
Yes.
and you gave Jenna the lowest rating?
I'm not rating the winners, but yeah, I would say of the 8 winners we have right now, I would say that
That's
Jenna,
interesting. That's super interesting that she was rated so high, like her season was rated so high, but she's the lowest winner that you have. Interesting.
I don't know if there was a loaded statement.
No, I'm still mad at you right now. Okay, honestly, all my bitterness right now is coming for how you're rating All Stars and how you're completely critiquing my favorite season.
Up next, we have Vanuatu, which I will be starting in about 10 minutes. So I'm hoping to have that out by about 4 p.m. tomorrow. Thank you, everyone, once again for continuing to support, continuing to reach out to come on as as a guest. Just with the good luck. The good luck. I know that I say thank you to everyone, but thank you to everyone that continues to say good luck to me and all that. I really do appreciate it. It is a lot, and I know I'm doing this to myself. It's not like I'm being forced to do this.
You're doing great.
But it is a lot, and so I really enjoyed this first week of it. I was able to catch up today, thank goodness. Adam, Emily, thank you so much for coming on.
Of course.
I don't know what season I have for next for either one of you.
You have me for Micronesia, for
I have
sure.
for Micronesia.
Am I doing Cook Islands, or did you have someone for that?
I mean, I have people for almost everything.
Okay.
But we'll solve that after.
Yeah. And throw me in wherever else. Little side note, I'm always happy to come on and see everyone. So,
thank you, everyone.
Who agreed to do Gabon? I have to ask.
Oh, we've got
not me.
Who do we have for Gabon?
Is it Josh?
No.
Is Gideon? Is he doing Gabon?
What's who?
Gideon, is he Gabon?
I need to talk to you about that, but we're gonna go. We'll see you all after Vanuatu.